Good morning, Thursday, the 13th of March, 2025. And in our three element library case series, we're going to start with the working journal, and I want to show you a big mistake. If you were with me on Sunday, we talked about a lot about cover construction. Where my finger is on the working journal, I did not split my front cover and back cover apart and space my spine. I just put down my scrim tape and my uh, cotton and proceeded on. That was a big mistake. We talked a lot about making sure you have good spacing. So in order to fix that, I am recreasing my spine and my front and back bookboards. I started it over the edge of my desk to make sure I got it straight. And it leaves the inside very messy, but the outside is nice and smooth. And the silver lining for this is that I will end up with a journal that will lay very flat because of those big wrinkles. And we're going to also use those big wrinkles to our advantage to line up our inside end papers to cover. And you would think, why are you doing that when you see that I'm using a nice paper bag? But the reason is I want a smooth, even surface on the inside, and whatever I cover it with on the outside, I can still wrap my overhang of a half inch um, on top and bottom and one of the side edges, depending on which bookboard I'm working on. Not a big deal. This is a working journal, and from not being careful and not following my own rules, I ended up with a feature, let's call it, that's going to give me a nice flat working journal. Wasn't my intention to do it this way, but it is a happy accident. And you can see that I have sped this up because it's not a tutorial, but it is showing you sometimes what you can do when you make a mistake like I did. So we'll skip ahead. You can see I'm double gluing this time, even though I have a nice forgiving paper bag instead of packing paper. I still want it to go down relatively smooth because I'll probably add an ephemera pocket on the inside for loose ephemera that I intend to use in this working signature journal. I am planning to do Midori binding. I may do a floating binding, which would minimize even more that messy spine area. It's not going to be seen much anyway, but just so I don't get irritated every time I see it, I'll probably do a floating Midori cord binding. While I'm gluing these two inside end papers down, let me take a minute to thank you for joining me. I hope you find this project interesting and maybe it'll be useful to you when you're working on multiple journals, or maybe you have a thick journal planned but find it difficult to work on the middle or the back of a thick journal with all of the bulk either on your left or your right side. I actually thought of this idea while I was working on my Junk Journal January 2025 project. And I, in truth, did not bind until the end of that project. We sort of did little bits of binding along the way, but the whole journal was not bound until the end. And in the end, I did not use the cover, even though I finished it, that journal had planned. And so I thought to myself, what if I just make myself a working journal that only holds one or two signatures and a little bit of ephemera, and then also make a second journal, which is the intended final place for those signatures, and a little case to hold them all in, so that when I go to bind a finished journal, I have everything together in one place. And so that's what this project is all about for those of you who've never been to this channel or haven't been here in a while. Let's get our double gluing done for the other side. The back cover is the inside of the back cover. And then we'll move on to figuring out how we want to make a floating Midori cord inside spine, otherwise known as a hidden spine. But before we do that, I'd like to draw your attention to a post I made on Tuesday. Carol Tinson has made a junk journal cover that would easily work to cover this working book cover. And instead of using center binding like we're using with Midori cord binding, she used belly bands to make a cover for the working signatures to slip in and out of. And those belly bands attach to the inside of the front and back covers. It's very clever, and I could easily do that same method and make an overcover for our working journal. But since I already chose Midori binding, I thought I would just insert this suggestion for you if you don't have elastic or don't want to make a modified Midori binding like mine. Now let's talk about this thing. This is one of those purchases I saved up for and couldn't wait to get a few years ago. It's called the Crocodile Big Bite, as most of you know, and it's for punching holes that are farther away from the edge of your paper than, say, an inch or a half an inch, like just a regular hole punch. You can also set eyelets with it and probably do a couple other things, but I don't ever use it. And the reason is it has never set an eyelet for me without ruining my eyelet and making it all smashed and not affixing the materials the way it's supposed to. So I used it to punch my holes, top and bottom. I only have two cords in here, and I may not use the second cord. And then on the outside, all I did was tie knots instead of running the cords down and up like you would do in a normal Midori binding. Now, I did make it a floating binding, as you saw, but because I used the cord to hold the floating binding to the spine, I didn't have to glue it, and that will serve my purpose for this working journal. If you don't have a big crocodile like mine, you can always poke your holes with anything with a sharp point, and you can see there's an X-Acto knife, a very sharp pointed set of tweezers, or you can use your blunt tip needle, but the blunt tip needle won't work as well. Here's our signature that we made, and all I do is slip it into the cord, and the cord will hold it at the center mark of the signature, which was put together with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Works great, and will keep this signature flat while I'm working on it until I finish it. Everything lines up, and you'll see that there are 2 pages that are overhanging, and I can trim that later, but for the most part, I've nailed it in that it will accommodate 5.5 by 8.5 or a folded piece of standard paper. We have, just for fun, a pre-made signature just to show you that it will accommodate, this size will accommodate 2 signatures, or I can make a set of pockets that will float on that Midori cord if I decide that's what I want to do. These pockets are too wide, but I haven't decided how I'm going to handle the ephemera keeping part of this journal yet. So in the end, what I decided to do is just wait, and I covered the front with the same brown paper that I covered the inside with so that I would have a smooth cover to put a cover image on. I found this great Dr. Seuss-like image. I forgot, I think it's from the 1890s or something like that. But once I cut it apart to be able to use one piece on the front and one piece on the back, the joke of the image lost its punch. And so I'll probably go out and look for some technical drawings or something like that for this working journal. I added a hairband as a temporary closure, and I just may end up keeping the hairband as a closure. And we have our signature in. We still don't have any ephemera keeper type elements in this journal, but for all intents and purposes, this journal is ready to work now. And we could just wait until we figure out by working in it what exactly we need in the way of ephemera keepers while we're working on this signature. Carol Tinson's link will be the first link in show notes. On Sunday, we'll either tackle the library case to hold these journals in, or we'll get the final journal decorated a little bit further. Thanks for joining me. God bless you. I'll see you on Sunday.